Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today we'll be discussing about a speaker that can deliver serious punch without breaking a bank. Now before we dive into the speaker review, I just want to give an overview of the requirements, why the speaker was needed and what was the purpose of it. So the purpose was basically to replace the speakers of the TV with something that sound much better, punchier, and they don't require a subwoofer for a small sized room, say about 14 by 16 feet. And the speaker had to be below 30,000. That was the budget constraint on this. So I started browsing and I came across the Mission LX3 Mark II. Now, I already own the Mission LX2 Mark II and I've been using it for surrounds now. And earlier I was using it as the fronts left and right. So I was quite happy with the performance of the speaker. I mean, it wasn't exactly neutral, but yeah, the speakers were definitely punchy and they did punch above their weight class. If you want to know more about the Mission LX2, you can click here, and that's the review that I did of those speakers. Now, let's look at the specs of the Mission LX3 Mark II. So if you go to the website, you'll see that the bass driver is about 6.5 inch. That's, I think, a requirement in this setup. Treb driver is 25 microfiber dome. Their treb driver is usually mounted below the bass driver. And then you have the sensitivity. Sensitivity is 88 dB, not exactly very sensitive, but yeah, sort of in the mid-range. Recommended amplifier power is 20 to 120 watts. Though in this case, I would recommend that you go with at least 80 so that, you can go loud. Peak SPL is 105 dB. That's again plentiful. Although I never do go above 65 to 70 dB. 105 is just insane. Nominal impedance is 8 ohms. Minimum impedance is 4 ohms. And then the frequency response. This is what I think care about the most. 45 hertz is the minimum frequency. And we'll talk about that later. Crossovers at 3.2 kilohertz and cabinet volume 13.2 liters. That's pretty big. And the weight is nearly 9 kgs. Finishes, well, I just had one option. So I had Lux Black. So not much choice over there. Although in your case, you might have more options. So looking at the specs of the speaker, I was pretty happy with it. And I decided to buy it. I bought them at 27,500 and here they are. So these are definitely very heavy speakers. I mean, they come in at 9 kgs and they're pretty well built inert cabinet, I would say. And if you see over here, the tweeter is below the woofer. There aren't exactly any waveguides over here, so the treble response might be a problem, and we'll come to that later. The finish overall is, I would say, it's kind of silky to touch, but it's extremely prone to scratches. And this is a back-ported design. So if you look at the back of it, that's the port, and these are the binding posts. It's very standard binding posts over here. So yeah, overall, it's a pretty big speaker, pretty heavy, and safe to say the construction quality, I think, is pretty good. Now with this comes a grill as well, a magnetic grill. So you can just snap that on. Although I don't really like the look of it with the grill. So I mean, it's mostly for dust protection, and I would definitely keep this on because of how much dust there is. So yeah, if you have a dust-free environment, I would say looks better without the grill, definitely. So the Mission LX3 is definitely the biggest speaker I've come across, which is under 30,000 or $300. And given how Mission tunes their speakers, I was expecting something good, but I wasn't expecting something this good. So let's get on to the review. I've tested these speakers with the 3 amplifiers. The first one is the Sonos amp. The second one is the Marantz NR1711. And the third is the Yamaha RS202. Now, all of these amps were able to drive these speakers without any hesitation. And I did take them, I think, as loud as 70, 75 dB. There were no problems whatsoever. In fact, I had to be a little careful since these are new speakers and they haven't been exactly broken in. So I didn't get them louder than that. Now, the Mission LX3 is a warm sounding speaker. You'd want to pair it up with a neutral amplifier. And in my case, I would rather go with the Sonos amp rather than the Marantz or the Yamaha because they are definitely on the warmer side. You can possibly go with the Denon in this case because they are very slightly warm, but more towards, I would say, neutral. And even Cambridge Audio, I would say that's a good pairing. But as far as Marantz and maybe Yamaha goes, not so much, because the sound then becomes too warm and too laid back. And for TV listening and for dialogue listening, that becomes an issue. So yeah, that's the amplifier pairing recommendation I would give. And let's look at the frequency response. And we're going to talk about the bass, mids, trebs, and the soundstage. So let's go. So the bass is where these speakers shine. The bass is incredible. It's punchy, fast, responsive, and it delivers exactly what it says it's going to deliver. Now, if you look at the frequency response curve, you'll see that it goes low till about 44, 45 hertz. And it doesn't have any problems even at that frequency. And you won't feel yourself in most of the cases requiring a sub. So yes, with the bass, I'm extremely happy with this. It's very accurate, punchy, fast, crisp. Now, one recommendation I would give over here is to keep it roughly about 6 to 7 inches away from the wall. Since this is a back-ported design, if you put it too close up against the wall, it will sound boomy. So be careful. This is a back-ported design, and make sure you do this if you go and buy this. And now the mid-range is very clean. It's balanced, but it's not exactly detailed as I'm used to. Now, I've been using the ELAC DB 6.2 as my fronts, and compared to them, the mid-range, the mid-detail which is there, that seems to be a little lackluster, I would say. But then again, I'm comparing to a speaker which is roughly twice the price of this. And for the price that it delivers. I mean, I can't expect anything better in this price range to give this much detail. But obviously, I'm nitpicking at this, and that's what I felt. The mid range was a little, not crisp enough, I would say, compared to the ELACs. But then ELACs are at 44,000, and this is sitting at 27,000. So yeah, now things did get better when I paired up a subwoofer to this. Now the subwoofer that I'm using is the SVS SB1000 Pro. Now when I paired up the subwoofer with this, the mid-range became a little more clearer. The details were more pronounced and it was shining a little bit more in the mid-range department. So yeah, if you pair up a subwoofer with this and you're listening to the mid-range and you're looking for that sparkle in the mid-range, the clarity that comes, that will get better if you pair it up with a subwoofer. But this was just for testing purposes. For regular use, I'm not using a sub on this. Now, the overall presentation is engaging and dynamic. But when it comes to the treble, this is where it starts showing that this is a budget speaker. And due to its high crossover at 3.2 kilohertz and the lack for a waveguide, as I mentioned earlier, the treble is extremely directional. And if you move 30 or 40 degrees away from its axis, the treble sharply reduces. And these speakers are extremely directional. So the soundstage, in a way, reduces a lot. So if you care about the high frequencies and you don't want to miss out on the treb, then you definitely need to toe them in at your exact listening position. And these speakers, since their tweeter is mounted below the woofer, you actually need to put them a little higher so that it's at your ear level. And this is where the problem with these speakers lie. They are directional. The soundstage, as a result, is not that wide. If you go off axis, the treb definitely reduces. You can hear it. The sharpness is gone. And yeah, it gets a little annoying. But if you sit exactly on the axis of the speakers, they sound honestly quite good. So if you look at the frequency response curve up until the mid-range, it's fairly neutral. With the mid-range, I feel it lacks a little bit of the punch that I'm looking for. Since I have been spoiled by the ELAC a little bit. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that in speakers. And well, that's just my bias. So yeah, the mid-range I feel is a little lacking. The treb is all over the place if you go off axis, but if you stay on axis, it's decent. And it does require some EQ control. In my case, I had to run an EQ, if I'm not wrong, at 4, 6, 8, and 10 kilohertz. In your case, it might be different. So I can't recommend any EQs to you. I can just tell you, in my case, this was it. So what's the verdict? Now, if you look at the Mission LX3 as an entire package, you're looking at powerful bass, which extends low, fast, punchy, responsive, accurate. The mid range, it's fairly neutral, lacks a little bit of detail, but for most cases, that's plentiful, I would say. And the treble, which is a little troubled, I would say. And if you can, let's say, not change your listening position occasionally, it's mostly fixed, and you can put some equalizations on it. Then I think this is the best sounding speaker you can have for this budget, period. You'll have to spend considerably more money to get something better than these, where it lacks. And the treble, when you do fix it, that's fairly rolled off, and that's why it's a little warm. So yeah, I mean, I don't think I can find better speakers than these at this budget which sound this good. And that's my verdict.